Hello, everyone, and welcome to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast coming to you, as always, from deep within the Outer Rim, far beyond the watchful eyes of the Galactic Empire. My name is John Mark Tolley, and joining me today, as always, are my two co-hosts.
I'm Garrett K. Jones.
And this is...
Brian Karasek. Welcome to the show, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Good to see you again. Has it been a week already? It went so fast.
It
Dude,
has.
right?
Yeah, I know, right? While we were away, I'm getting an echo here. I don't know why, but
No clue.
oh, there we go. It's gone now. One of us turned a year older, and I'll see if you can guess which one that was.
I'm guessing it's the guy with the Palpatine fix. No, I'm kidding. It's totally you. Happy birthday.
Thank you. I wasn't chasing the hug there at all. No, not at all.
I would be.
Yeah, no. But yeah, I turned a year, and I got this little thing right here from my wonderful wife, and which is apropos considering what we're going to be talking about today.
It just doesn't have that forward compartment attached to it.
I know what happened to that.
You know what? I think it's kind of for the better.
Probably, yeah. By the way, Garrett, I loved your little.
I thought you would. You kind of gave me the idea when you posted that meme of
it's Han Solo season.
So for those of you tuning in, so I posted a thing on the War of the Stars Instagram this morning. It was a video that I shot yesterday afternoon in front of the green screen in my studio here, and it's me
he's
doing
got a studio. Look how fancy he is.
I say studio. It's literally like a cluttered bedroom turned office with a green screen. It's
Someone's doing well.
Whoa, you have a green screen?
Yeah. Anyway, I just can't wear my Green Ranger helmet in front of it because then I look like I have got no head. Trust me, I do not want to pull a Brick Tamlin. That's an Anchorman reference. Anyway, so so I posted this video and it was really fun. It was me with a white shirt, black vest, very Han Solo style, trying to pitch the idea of what we're talking about today. Which, John, what are we talking about today?
Well, we are continuing our journey through the Star Wars theatrical movie releases with Solo.
Yes.
The second of the non-saga movies that they did.
Non-saga because it's still canon, but it's not.
It's not part of the Skywalker saga. And it was up to now. It was the last one they did because it was shortly after that they kind of put a bit of a hiatus on the movie releases as far.
Well, they realized they'd overdone it.
Yeah.
I hope they realized that they overdone it.
Yeah, because I know the original plan was to, like, every other year, kind of like in between, like they would do a saga movie, then they were going to do a standalone movie, then a saga movie, then a standalone. That was kind of like what I understood the plan was, is to, in the years where there wasn't going to be a saga movie, there would be one of these Star Wars stories movies.
And that would have been fine, except, like, I mean, I'll say my comments once we get into the review. But yeah, I think like the next Star Wars story film that we're getting is technically Mando and Grogu.
Yeah.
And which is fine, I guess. I mean, their story is kind of wrapped up at the end of season 3. I don't really see where it needs to go from there.
Yeah.
But to be fair, I mean, like, I honestly really enjoyed Solo.
Mm-hmm.
I never read a whole lot of the EW books that came out back in the 90s. So a lot of the stuff that happened as far as like the Kessel Run or any of that history, that was never in my brain.
Yeah.
And I think that helped me enjoy it a little bit more for what it was.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, once we kind of get into it, I think it's also important to kind of understand not necessarily the backstory of Han Solo, but the backstory of the production and kind of what led into Han Solo and why it was the first. I don't not necessarily the first movie, but it it had the reputation of among many people of being the first quote unquote flop for a Star Wars film, as far as not making the type of money that a lot of the other movies had. And, there's a lot of people that as it came out were real, not necessarily critical of it, but there was a lot of stuff that was behind the scenes that kind of came out that a lot of people that I remember when the movie was coming out were kind of looking at it side-eyed. There was the change in director, there was the change in, the release date was pushed back and all this other stuff. And it definitely left a certain taste in some people's mouths, I think, of before they even saw the movie, of thinking maybe it was going to be something that it wasn't.
Yeah.
Well,
I think part of it has to go with going on with what happened behind the scenes. Because, you look at what happened. They had, was it Chris Miller and Phil Lord, who were the guys behind the Lego movies.
mm-hmm.
They initially were the guys who were set to write and direct the movie,
Mm-hmm.
but they wanted to do something that was not serious. They wanted to be kind of like tongue in cheek. They didn't really.
They wanted to make a Miller Lord movie,
right? Exactly, and and that was not all what was asked of them. They started doing their own thing, and so they got through most of the principal shooting, I think, and then they got fired when Kathleen Kennedy started seeing like the test reels and stuff like that. And I think
we're not ready for a goofy movie in canon yet. They're still taking it way too seriously.
Yeah.
Right. And well, yeah. And then so they brought on Ron Howard, who had to go back in and reshoot a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that took time, that took money. Because Ron Howard's he's an Oscar-winning or Oscar-nominated director. That's going to bring with it some clout, which I think for what he inherited, he did a great job with what he did.
Well, I think that, because I remember when those announced, that the reshoots were happening, and I think we're right at that time where, with the internet being what it was at the time and is now, that reshoots are something that happen all the time in movies. Like every movie always has reshoots, but this was early on when we were finally finding out that there were reshoots. So there are people that heard, oh, they're reshooting the movie, and I think for some people it clicked in their mind, oh, that must mean this movie is bad. If they're having to reshoot it, it must mean it's really bad. Well, that's not necessarily the case, because
how many times have they started doing reshoots with MCU movies, and most of those didn't tank?
Yeah. But I think it was this because they looked at how Last Jedi kind of had, because Last Jedi had come right before that, I believe, didn't it? Or was it after Solo?
Last Jedi came out in 2017, so it came out
Last Jedi was just prior to Solo.
What's that? It was before Solo?
Sorry, Garrett.
Yeah, it was just
before Solo.
Yeah. And there's already this kind of, from a certain percentage of the fandom that was very negative towards Last Jedi. And then it comes out that they're doing reshoots of Solo. And I think for that part of the fandom, they just automatically assumed, like, well, that just must mean that the movie that we're going to get in was going to be really, really bad, and it's probably going to be
those guys
really,
couldn't
really
have been
bad.
happier to hear that too. They were just dying to hear bad news about that movie.
Yeah.
I think what Garrett just said has a great bearing on it as well. The original trilogy came out 3 years apart.
Yeah.
Prequel trilogy came out 3 years apart. The sequel trilogy came out Force Awakens 2015. Rogue One 2016, Last Jedi 2017, Solo 2018, 5 months after The Last Jedi.
Mhm.
Guys, it's too much. Like Star Wars movies used to be an event. I mean, speaking as someone who dresses up and goes to the midnight showings, it's been 5 months. I wasn't ready for another one. They didn't let any anticipation build.
Exactly.
And not for nothing, they're coming out with movies that were to many disappointing. And Solo, they just couldn't have picked a more I guess they could have if they'd made Luke Skywalker a Star Wars story. Like Han Solo is a character in which many of the fandom have serious emotional investment.
Yeah.
You can't just throw a Solo movie out there and expect a positive reaction from everybody.
Well, for me, I've said this this before, and even though I did end up enjoying Solo, but for me, Solo is the movie that did not need to be made. I did not need to see a Solo movie because to me, I already knew everything I needed to know about Han Solo over the 4 movies that he'd been in.
But do you know how he got his last name? I mean, that's super important.
I'm going to have to touch on that again.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. And, I mean, for what it's worth, it was fun, interesting. I've always thought that Solo would have worked best as a anthology series. As a series, like, maybe a 3-season series, 2 or 3 season series, episodically done, like the old school of just Han and Chewie going on adventures. Like each week it's a different
adventure of the week type of thing.
Each week is an adventure of the week with Han and Chewie.
Indiana Jones in space, quite literally.
Yeah, literally, it would be like the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
Young Indiana Jones, exactly.
Except it would be Han Solo.
Instead, what we got was now bear in mind, I enjoyed the film.
Mm-hmm.
I watched it 3 times in the theater and not since. I didn't have any emotional investment in that character. I didn't care what they did with him. It's fine. I didn't care who they cast as him. I didn't care what happened to him. I was just interested in seeing the story, and I liked the story. If you come to that movie not knowing or caring, either one, who Han Solo is, I think it's a good movie. But the problem is you've got people who expect certain things from this character, and they didn't get them. And like, if you look at Alden Ehrenreich, I think he objectively does a pretty good impression of young Han Solo.
Mm-hmm.
But my complaint, and really the only complaint I had with the film, was that we know a few iconic things about Han Solo. He's known for a few things: the Kessel Run, the pistol twirl back into the holster, the DL-44, the Millennium Falcon, and Chewbacca and Lando. Those are like the 6 that, like, if you ask anybody,
dropping cargo at the first sign of an Imperial Star Destroyer.
Fair enough, yes. But if you ask somebody what is iconic about Han Solo, I bet they will list one of those 6 things, or perhaps Garrett's 7th. And we watched that movie and we learned that all of those things enter his life in the same long weekend. And now what? There's 10 years between that and A New Hope. It felt forced to me. I would have liked for some of that stuff to be spread out. It's like Han Solo just created his entire personality over the course of, like I say, a 4-day weekend, and then just coasted on that for absolutely the rest of his life. Now, what I really liked was the Corellia scenes, because I had no idea. I don't know if you guys did, but I had no idea what Corellia was like. And I even on a previous show I was on, I made reference to, I don't know if Han Solo is exactly living a rough life on the mean streets of Corellia. I believe somebody actually uses the phrase "the mean streets of Corellia" in that film.
Well, so what's funny is there was an old EU book series called the Corellian Trilogy, which deals with Corellia and their system, how it's a 3-world system, and how there was a space station in the center of it called Center Point, and all these planets had come from different parts of the galaxy, but they'd used giant tractor beams thousands of years ago to bring them together to make one planetary system with these 3 planets. And
excuse me, Neil deGrasse Tyson would like a word.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to imagine the gravitational effects of having 3 planets pulled together. Like, oh, this is more convenient. Just build a bridge.
Yeah. But Centerpoint Station was supposed to be like the middle of it, that all these planets kind of not necessarily revolved around, but was like the hub of the intergalactic trade for the Corellian system. But I do like how they showed that like Corellia was one of the main systems for building like building starships and stuff.
I
like
love
that.
the White Worm Gang. I thought that was fascinating. The sun sensitive worms, or Lady Proxima, Moloch, and Jabad maybe, but like, hey guys, there's 12-foot long vampire worms that are running crime syndicates on Corellia. I'd love to see more of that.
Yeah.
I love the hunting dogs. I really like the car chase. Like, that was pretty cool, and clearly based on like a 50s roadster. I love all that stuff.
I love that. I did like that because that was definitely a nod to Lucas. Loving the car chase scenes, loving all that type of stuff. And yeah, that was a very, very good.
Also, I believe this is the first time we see Teras Kazi on screen since the Nintendo game.
Yes, it was.
I don't know that we've ever seen Teras Kazi, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with high-end hair care products, but there is a line of hair care products called Kerastase. And I made a few comical memes about that. Like, how does Kira have such beautiful hair? It's not the Force, it's Kerastase.
That's funny.
But I enjoyed all that stuff, like the kind of slice of life, looking at what it's like at the ground level of Corellia was really fun. The whole Crime Syndicate build, I love Dryden Voss. Who is that? Vision.
Dryden Voss was
Paul Bettany.
Paul Bettany, thank you.
Yeah.
Had to Google it. I'm getting old, but I loved his work. I liked that whole setup there. Did I see in the background of his office a red and black Mandalorian armor?
Yes. I believe you did. Yes, there was a lot of good. There was a lot of good Easter eggs there.
Yeah, I mean, and of course, spoiler alert for a movie that came out in 2018. But Darth Maul's appearance at the end was really fun because nobody in the theater knew that he was still alive at this point.
Yes.
So, I'm sorry, except your boy right here.
Yeah, like, except those who'd watched the Clone Wars and were like,
and I loved Maul threateningly turning on his lightsaber like in a hologram. Like, come on, dude. Like, learn from the master. Palpatine wasn't brandishing his lightsaber from across the galaxy. You don't need it. You don't need it. But I thought that Emilia Clarke was awesome. I thought everybody was great in this movie. I really enjoyed this movie.
Really good, yes.
I think it's easy for me to say. It was easy for me to say just watch the movie, because they didn't show us young Palpatine turning to the dark side because he had a broken heart or something like that, which I heard was in the works.
My thoughts on this is that, like, for what it's worth, I think the actors did a great job, with the exception of one, and I'll come back to that one in a moment. I think they did a great job with what they had. I think the way it was shot, the way it was edited, I think it was really well done. It was well paced. It throws some things into the lore that I think was kind of unnecessary. Like, we didn't need to learn that starships ran on coaxium. I mean, it does give us a race against the clock, and I like that, especially for a heist movie.
Yeah,
we needed something like that, but it feels a little, I don't know, unnecessary maybe. Because as far, I mean, most starships, I mean, you think they're going to have some kind of like reactor system where they're reacting with, like fission or something like that, not, highly unstable rocket fuel. It's cool that they went that route, but it was really kind of unnecessary.
Yeah.
I liked seeing the Pikes in live action. That was really neat, because the only other time we got to see them was in Clone Wars.
Yeah,
Garrett, when they mentioned the Pikes, were you like, Maul is coming?
No, I didn't even think that. That didn't even strike me as something that was going to happen. I just thought this was because I didn't know exactly where it fell within the timeline of the canon. I didn't even anticipate it. because by that
I was tracking that. I was really pleased to see that. I was very proud of myself for calling that foreshadowing.
But I did like the fact that Maul shows up. But going off of what you're saying, though, Brian, I do think the fact that he does brandish his lightsaber is actually really kind of a fun thing, because in doing so, he's a completely different animal. We're talking about, this is a post Clone Wars version of Maul he's unhinged. He is aggressive. He is trying to operate from have some controlling interest in what's happening with the crime syndicates, whether it's Dryden Voss or it's the Pikes or it's somebody else. And I think it's great that we get someone who finally we get to see a Kafar on screen for the first time since Phantom Menace. Because the only other time we get is Quinlan Voss in a blink and you miss it cameo on Tatooine in Phantom Menace.
So I'm going to go ahead and admit that I did not know that was Dryden Voss's species.
Really? The tattoo wasn't a dead giveaway?
I mean, I knew the last name Voss, but I have not been. I find Quinlan Voss a fascinating supporting character to Asajj Ventress's story, but I did not look him up. So I learn everything every time I talk to you guys. That's great.
Hey, that's what we're here for. One thing
I love the cinematography. I've got to come back to the Terraskazi fights because the cinematography of those battles is so cool. Just like it's not the Force, it's not lightsabers, but it's really close. Like just the quick motions, and it's really, really cool stuff. I liked all of that. I honestly had forgotten about the coaxium, and that kind of took me out of it a little bit. Like, now there's this rocket fuel we've never heard of before that everybody knows about. I don't much care for it when they shoehorn stuff in that, like, now everybody's supposed to have already known about this, like the monkey face horses in Last Jedi, the Fathir.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys were clocking this, but after the Fathir, which I didn't like their standard anyway, like, why doesn't anything have a snout? Every time they make a new monster, it's always like some crazy face monkey face thing. But after they initiate the Fathir in Last Jedi, the next 3 books I read mentioned Fathir very ostentatiously, like using it. They're an idiom. Strong as a Fathir. Come on. Like, we've never heard of these things before. Let them go. Just let them go.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the scene of the battle scenes where he's the trooper and Han Solo is the trooper, because again it gave realism to Star Wars. Like, it showed that it wasn't just the stormtroopers in the armor that were out with fighting, but there were actual grunts who were just in the trenches, and like literally trenches. Yeah, they were literally fighting in trenches, like it was the First World War. Yeah, it was just so.
There's really a lot in this movie. I love the swoop bike gang. We've heard about swoop bike gangs for decades, and now we get to see one. And Enfys Nest is a great character. Yeah, made only better by the fact that she's essentially a teenage girl. Like, and I mean, I made this joke and it's tacky, but like, Enfys Nest is coming back from a raid and like jamming out to whatever the space version of Taylor Swift is. Like, it's just a funny twist to see that demographic operating at that level. And I liked it a lot.
Yeah. I will say I did call her turning out to be kind of more of a good guy character from pretty early on, just because how much they were showing her and how much they were kind of like, okay, there's going to be something about this character that's going to turn out. She's going to turn out to be not as bad or not as it seems to be.
I tried not to be too disappointed in that. I liked how ruthless
I wasn't disappointed, but I was just kind of like, okay, that was when I saw, kind of telegraphed.
I kind of get that. My concern about that, like, when I think the actress did a great job, and I think it kind of just it's whatever, but my first thought is, why are all these grown adult beings listening to a teenage girl whose whims could change based on whatever's going on with her? Because, I mean, teenagers, typically, whether it's guy, whether it's gal, doesn't matter. Their moods change on a dime. My question, like, I would have liked to have known a little bit more about the organization, because it's like, was Enfys Nest a title or was it a name? If it's a title and she inherited it from like a parent who ran the organization, cool, that makes more sense. But if that's just her name, why aren't these people revolting and just doing their own thing?
I don't know.
That's the storytelling question.
Well, there is a conventional wisdom about certain organizations that are largely male dominated, that when you encounter a female in a leadership position within those organizations, she is 10 times more dangerous than one of her peers, because she's had to work 10 times harder to earn that position. So one would think that the reason they follow her is that she is scarier than all of them, and because she's had to be. And again, you know, without going too far into it, I mentioned when we talked about The Force Awakens, there's a reason Rey is such a good fighter, and it's because she is a female living alone on a lawless planet. And I think Enfys Nest has a very similar backstory in that she's had to fight for her life most of her life. I'm looking her up. That is her name. Earned her a reputation as an infamous marauder, including in Crimson Dawn. So everybody knew her. She was born in 27 BBY. I'm looking for in canon what year Solo was set.
I do not know.
Oh.
So she was 17.
Okay.
If she was born in 27 BBY, Solo takes place in 10 BBY. So 17, I mean, I've known some 17-year-old girls who are pretty scary, so but that might just be me. So yeah. I liked the way that she was cast, though. And we're almost at a half hour. I don't think we can possibly let ourselves get away without mentioning Donald Glover.
Yeah.
Dude, Donald Glover is a phenomenal actor. Like, yeah. I mean, the first thing I ever witnessed him in prior to this was in Spider-Man: Homecoming, but I've seen him in other things. And like, if you've never watched Community,
yes,
like, you've never
pause the show and go watch it now. Is what.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Like you get a full range of his personality and his ability to act in that show, like from being completely idiotic and comedic to being incredibly serious and being like the most adult person in a room full of other adults.
Yes,
it is.
And fantastic. Watch the Childish Gambino video for This Is America, because that guy, it's not fair. Somewhere there is an untalented singer, actor, and comedian who's mad at Donald Glover because Donald Glover took all of those things. He's a hilarious stand-up. He's an amazing actor, and he's a brilliant musician. I love his work, and I was so happy to see he got Lando.
His performance as Lando is probably one of the highlights for me.
Yeah,
I loved the fact that like his persona of it, or his performance, is it pays homage to Billy D. Williams without being a caricature of Billy D.
Yeah.
Williams.
I love that.
Just like I think Aaron Reich did a great job of portraying Han Solo without being a caricature of Harrison.
Exactly. I love that they made the fact that he calls him Han as part of this.
Yes.
part of that. I love that.
That was a really nice touch. And I do like it when they tie up tiny little loose ends like that. I thought that was cool. Like the merging of Lando's droid with the ship's control system of the Millennium Falcon, which explains the emotional connection that both of these men have to that ship. That ship actually has a personality that they both knew.
Yeah. Well, I think the other thing is that like that merging of the droid with the ship's nav computer actually explains a bit of throwaway dialogue in Empire Strikes Back, where 3PO is talking. He's giving a report to Han and Leia, saying that that it has like a unique dialect or something like that. He's complaining about how it doesn't want to cooperate with him.
Yeah,
and I'm like, oh, well, this totally explains why.
Yes,
Yeah.
the Falcon is kind of a bee.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But see, that brings me to the character and performance that I didn't like.
Mm.
And that is the droid played by Phoebe Waller-Bridge. For one, I'm not a fan of Phoebe Waller-Bridge. As far as things that she has worked on as a script doctor, it has pretty much destroyed whatever she's worked on. Like she did some of the rewrites on the last Bond movie, and it just like I was not thrilled.
Wow, that is knowledgeable and harsh.
Yeah. But and I don't like the way she performs. Like, I mean, obviously this is a character that she wrote in as kind of like it feels like a write-in for herself.
Right.
And she just had a bunch of things to get off her chest. And I'm like, I don't need this from this kind of a character. I
Not
get
wrong.
that.
Not wrong.
I get that there are some droids who probably think very highly of the fact that they are basically indentured servants for the duration of their existence, and that's fine. But in this case, like the way that Lando treats the droid, treats her, is as an equal, as a friend, someone that he cares deeply about. She is not a slave to him.
I mean, there were lots of rumors and memes going around that they were dating.
Right?
Well, it's even
Or at least-
mentioned in it's even
perhaps
mentioned
not
in
dating,
the
but
movies. That's
involved.
Romantic.
that's even actually mentioned in the movie because
I
Han
missed
asks
that or forgot it.
Han asks they talk about how basically how they've been intimate, and Han even says, "How does that work?" And she says, "It just does." Yeah,
Well, I mean, you got to
so-
hand it to Lando. Players gonna play.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry to do the voice. That's not okay. I apologize. But nonetheless, like Lando's gonna score whatever the goal is.
yeah,
I loved you. You can tell that Donald Glover grew up playing Lando, and I am
Oh.
certain in his friend group as a child, he was like, "At last, I have a character that I can be." And you know, all of his little white nerdy friends playing Star Wars were like, "You can be Lando." He's like, "You right? I'm gonna be Lando." That's he's got to.
yeah.
And I think you could really see the joy in his characterization, and the wardrobe department loved him. I can't imagine anybody that they could have done better with that.
So many capes when they open that one room, and it's just all the
Yeah.
capes. Oh
Yeah,
I
that
thought
reminded
that
me.
was
Did you guys see Best in Show?
no.
Yes, a long time ago.
So there's a scene when two of the competitors are packing, and one of them they're two men who are romantically involved, and one of them is a little bit more flamboyant than the other. And so the
Makes sense.
flamboyant one is packing his bag, and his partner says, "So I'm counting 14 kimonos. We're gonna be in Philadelphia for 3 days." So, and the other guy said, "So more, right?" That's Lando's cape room really reminded me of that. I was waiting for like a musical montage where Lando's trying on different capes, and L337 is like, yeah. Let me see how old Donald Glover is. Yeah, he was born in '83, so he's a little bit behind me. He's 41. He's more my wife's age, but
Yeah.
being born in '83 is the perfect time to grow up watching Star Wars because everything's on VHS by
Yeah.
the time you're able to watch
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
it. I like the spice mine. I thought that was a great scene, and
I love that we got to see Kessel.
yeah,
I mean,
I like the Lovecraftian space monster in the Kessel Run. That's pretty cool.
Mhm.
I still think they tried a little bit hard to make the original bad dialogue in episode 4 work by making it like it's in only 12 parsecs, but I'll forgive it because I thought it was a great movie.
I love the fact that they added a little thing from the old EU with Kessel, where they have it was called the Maw, where
Mhm.
it was by Kessel. You have basically like 3 different black holes that are there, and in the middle is an area where it's kind of like the eye of the storm, where if you're a good enough pilot, you can get through.
And if you just angle wrong, you get caught in the gravity field of one.
Yeah.
I like that whole scene. I do think it's a shame that Disney. I try not to badmouth Disney's release schedule. Like Disney's been making timeless classics that we can treasure for a generation since 1920. It's hard to it's hard to convincingly armchair quarterback them. But I really think they dropped the ball, so to speak, with Solo, in that they should have waited another year. They should have put a little bit more time into it. It was just too much. And the way that we as a fandom responded to The Last Jedi, to The Force Awakens, the way we responded with buying the merch and the t-shirts and the toys and the McDonald's collector cups, like we all went berserk for it because we thought there was not going to be any more Star Wars ever. And so we went nuts for Force Awakens merch, and Disney's like, oh boy, look what they'll buy everything. And so they came out with the same level of merch for Last Jedi, and it did not work.
And I think
because
that
it was a year later.
Oh, and I think that the problem is that highlights a fundamental misunderstanding that the Disney Corporation has had for Star Wars fans. Yeah, we want Star Wars, but we want good Star Wars. We don't want the market oversaturated, and we want it to feel like an event. Now, the release of The Force Awakens felt like an event.
Yeah.
And then a year later, we got Rogue One, and I'm like, okay. Rogue One was good. I didn't see it right away because I had a newborn baby at home. But my son's first theater experience was going to see a Star Wars movie. He just doesn't remember because he had no cognizant memory.
Again, dadding correctly.
Yep. But the span in between, like it felt like I think what you were saying, Brian, there's no breather. There's no room to get used to the fact that we just had this experience.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so between and Disney was riding high, like Force Awakens, great return on investment. Rogue One, fantastic. And we'll talk about this one next month, but a fantastic return on investment. The Last Jedi, starting to dip back that nose.
Yeah, Last Jedi, it's a little bit. Oh no, what did you do?
And then
you're starting to get it wrong.
And then we get Solo, and Solo doesn't exactly. We're not nosediving at this point, but it just feels like it because there's only a 5-month gap between The Last Jedi and Solo. We had no time to maneuver, and that was in a summer where we had a ton of summer blockbusters, including Infinity War.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think that's another thing that really hurt was the fact, like you said, Infinity Wars. Yeah. I
would
think it was
just
bad timing.
For those keeping score at home, Last Jedi had a budget of $317 million and made $1.3 billion worldwide. So not exactly a disappointing return, but it did take worldwide to get there. And it also, I think we can all agree, created a substantial schism in the fandom.
Yeah.
It used to be, you'd meet somebody who liked Star Wars and you're like, oh boy, we're friends. Let's talk about Star Wars. And now, I mean, to this day, if I meet someone who's like wearing a Star Wars t-shirt, like, I don't know if I really want to talk about it. Like you're just as likely to be called horrible names for not disliking a movie to the correct amount as you are to make a new friend. And so I think, I enjoyed The Last Jedi. I thought it was fine. Again, I watched it 4 times in the theater and not since. But as Garrett was saying, it's just they did too much. They just choked the market. They thought we were going to buy everything, and we want Star Wars, but not like that. You go, let us build up some anticipation. Let us want it. Don't just start throwing it at us. That annual release from 15 through 19 just felt like money, please. And that's why you get the toy release for Rise of Skywalker was what, 9 figures?
Something like that, yeah. And the other thing is that, like, the coolest thing I think that they did for Solo, as far as any kind of merchandise, hands down, was either the Black Series figure of Lando, or the collaboration with Nerf to make the DL55. Because it was cartridge loaded, and you just pull back on it and you could fire. It was nice and spring loaded, the way any gun should be. Well, Nerf gun. Let me clarify that. Nerf gun.
Oh. Well, what
I
else do
want
we
to
have?
see here what our I want to get an actual number on the figures from Rise of Skywalker, because Palpatines from that film, and one of them is a $150 bust, and one of them is a Funko Pop. And why we didn't get a Black Series of zombie Cenobite Palpatine is beyond me. And it's a license to print money. But again, I'm not objective. But I'm curious now, because we see so much about the Knights of Ren, and we learn nothing about them that I'm aware of. There might be something in the books that I haven't touched on.
No, I haven't
asking,
seen
what do you guys think? Is there something that I don't know about? Okay,
I-
so we see the Knights of Ren again and again. We know nothing about them. And how many Knights of Ren are there? 9 to 12, maybe? And how many
No
Knights of
clue.
Ren figures did we get? 1. And that figure has a picture of the other ones on it. I mean, if ever there was an opportunity to do a world building, collectors are dying for that stuff. And the reason for that, I strongly believe, and Garrett, I think you've corrected me on this, but I'm going to stand by it. That Last Jedi is the reason that Toys R Us went out of business in America, because they thought that we were going to do the same thing that we always had.
Mm.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So, anyways, I got distracted. I'm trying to type here, but yeah, I'm going to look that up because I'm interested as a collector in knowing how many figures we actually got.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
that
we
said,
haven't
I enjoyed the heck out of the film, and I did mention I was going to touch on this, but again, guys, I've mentioned this on the show previously, but I'm just going to go ahead and say again, the Imperial Recruiter is the most screen accurate portrayal of a military recruiter I've ever seen in any sci-fi movie, because that man is forced to indoctrinate people into the Empire. He's surrounded by paraphernalia and propaganda that does not affect him, and given one possible minor hitch in getting an applicant into the Empire, he immediately falsifies data to make his day easier. And again, I have never felt more seen as a military recruiter of 22 years ago. There the temptation to, you know what, I got a laser printer. You say you didn't graduate high school? Hey, hang on a sec. No, I never did that. Statute of limitations notwithstanding. But yeah, I love that moment when he's like, "You don't have a last name, Solo."
Yeah, I was really like, that's kind of a lame way to get your surname. I mean, granted, don't get me wrong. I mean, I come from a line of Joneses where I've had both a great aunt and a cousin, first cousin, who've both gotten married and become Smiths, and everyone knows that surname was based on an occupation like Taylor. But I mean, still, it's like, come on, let's give him something cooler for a backstory than that.
Yeah.
It's like Phil Lord and Chris Miller are just like, you know what? Let's just throw a dart at a reason, and that's how he gets his name, and that's what they landed on.
Yeah. I think you're not far off on that.
Well, I think we need to spend at least a couple minutes talking about Woody Harrelson's character, Beckett. Yeah, I think he did a good job, as you kind of see where Solo learned some of his not necessarily got his personality, but how he kind of became the more jaded Han Solo we see at the beginning of A New Hope. Not necessarily, I don't know if jaded is the right word, but just kind of like just in it for the money, just in it for himself and Chewie. We kind of see that with how Beckett is and how Beckett kind of trains him to only think of himself, because that's the only one person Beckett thought of was himself. Everybody else was expendable to him.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, the only character that Beckett wasn't didn't ignore was and I can't remember her name for the life of me, but the character played by Tandy Newton. Like her like Val, thank you.
Yeah.
Like,
oh right,
like
Val the short-lived.
Yeah, she was probably the only character he actually cared about.
Oh, speaking of Val, while we're on the topic, actors I'm so glad finally got to be in Star Wars. It's Woody Harrelson.
Yeah,
you gotta love him.
Yeah.
I made a meme of this, by the way. I'm not going to share it, but the joke was, well, we knew what would happen, guys. Once Disney bought Star Wars, they found a way to put Mickey in a movie. No?
Mickey?
Woody Harrelson famously plays Mickey Knox in Natural Born Killers.
Oh.
See, I've never actually watched Natural Born Killers.
Oh, it's okay. It doesn't hold up well. But yeah, that was my joke with that. As soon as I saw him cast, I was like, "Oh, Mickey's in the movie! I love it." Yep.
Yeah.
Disney movies always have a hidden Mickey.
See, that I get.
Yeah.
I did get an answer, by the way, just for the sake of argument. The 3.75 vintage collection had 10 figures spread across 2 waves, including a special release Luke Skywalker Force Ghost.
Nice.
And there was a Kylo Ren re-release with an updated helmet, which was essentially a previously released character with a new helmet. And then the 6-inch Black Series had 12 figures, including a few special edition releases. So that's 10 figures, of whom one is a Sith Trooper, one is a Knight of Ren. And it's offensive to me that, and maybe I shouldn't use that word, but I don't care. It's overly emotionally charged, but I'm going to give it. It's offensive to me that we don't have more than one Knight of Ren. I got 3 shelves of Palpatine right here. I would have bought every single Knight of Ren just for that and put him behind my Rey Palpatine. She's the only non-Sheev on my shelf. She's a Palpatine. She's going up there.
That's right. She is a Palpatine.
He is. And I'm going to say, I think Sidious would call it a win that in dying, he ended the Skywalker line and Solo line and put a direct descendant of his genetic code in the place as the Great Jedi Grandmaster. And if we don't see some echo of that in the Rey trilogy, or if that ever happens for real, I'll be disappointed.
At this point, they've pretty much canned the Rey film that was supposed to be coming out.
Wow.
Oh, really? I thought I've read. I
mean, they still have a director, which is the weird lady who likes to make men uncomfortable. Which, I mean, like, that kills like 51% of your fan base, but okay.
Charmin Obaid Chinoy. I don't know that person.
She was a documentarian turned filmmaker. I'm waiting for Google to load something up. It's
Nerdist says 3 days ago.
Okay, yeah, it says it's currently
Rey will return in Charmin Obaid Chinoy's Star Wars movie, 3rd and final new Star Wars movie.
No confirmed release date, which they've been
which
talking
is not a good
about
sign.
this. No, it's not, because they announced it a year ago at Star Wars Celebration, over a year ago, and there's no script written. There's no other casting announcements. The only thing we have is Daisy Ridley is, at this point, contractually obligated to be on the cast, and you've got
It's a bomb in your head says you have to, Daisy.
Yeah, and then Obaid Chinoy is attached to direct. Nothing is set. Which
I'd see it 3 times in the theater and maybe subsequently. That's my default setting. I will see any Star Wars movie 3 times in a theater in costume, the first 2, and then I will buy the DVD. And if it was a good movie, I'll watch it again. Otherwise, it's on my shelf.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, at this point, it feels like this is the Star Wars equivalent of Blade being put out by the MCU, which just got canned. completely. They've completely
Oh,
taken
that's
off.
a shame. I really liked the actor they had cast in that. The guy from
Yeah, but
House of
he's
Cards.
Mahershala Ali is a great actor. Unfortunately,
That's
he
how it's
spent 4
pronounced.
years
He's
of
the
his
Worcestershire
time,
sauce of actors.
right?
Yeah.
He has spent the last 4 years of his life trying to get this movie made, and they've gone through 2 directors, 3 or 4 writers, and they've pushed back the release date 4 times without filming a single
Oh,
thing.
don't give up though. Look what Ryan Reynolds did with Deadpool.
Yeah, but that's because people actually wanted that movie to come out. And
Okay, fair enough.
and if you haven't seen Deadpool and Wolverine, there's kind of a prophetic line in there.
Yes, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I haven't seen it, but I'm
Not
probably not
gonna ruin
going
it for
to.
you.
So, no, go ahead. Tell me. Or tell me offline.
Yeah, I'll tell you offline. Well, although by this point, even if I say it online, it's not a spoiler alert because people have seen the movie. It's all over social media. So,
All right. If you care about spoilers, go see the movie. But anyway, what did they say?
Yes. Well, as we wrap up, let's give a quick, I guess, grade for Solo.
I'd give it a B minus.
Okay.
I enjoyed it.
I agree with that.
Yeah, that's a good.
Yeah, solid. B minus. C minus if you liked Han Solo, and A if it's your first Star Wars movie.
Yeah. I think
my sliding scale
is good. Maybe 2.5 Millennium Falcons out of 5. Kind of.
And to be fair, I think Episode 4 is a C if you haven't seen Star Wars movies. But at this point, watching Episode 4, you kind of have to already like it.
Yeah, yeah.
The movie making, the cinematography, the movie making art of it is not aimed at a current audience. So I think showing anyone Episode 4 first is a bad call and a way for them to not like the films. I would go with Rogue One or Solo to do that.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's wrap things up. So next week is, of course, the first week of the month of November. And we're going to be talking about, as we were just talking about Solo, we're going to talk about the lore of this crime syndicates in the Star Wars universe, the Hutts, the Pikes.
I'm going to read up on that.
Black Sun.
I'm excited for this.
Dawn, yes.
Black Sun.
Elon Sbagano.
Yeah.
The
one-man crime syndicate.
Back to Shadows of the Empire for me.
Yeah. Yes. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Let's wrap things up here. And Garrett, why don't you tell the people out there where they can find you at?
Well, you guys can find me on Instagram and Twitter at GKJ_publishing, where I promote my books, The Archives of Async Ran, a currently 5-book fantasy series. I also talk about my show, The Right Way, which is on YouTube. It is currently in the midst of the start of season 7. Just had my 3rd episode launch on Saturday. I have a live stream episode this Saturday coming up, and another big episode on November 9th. And then there's going to be a nice little 3-week hiatus until December. So 5 episodes right back to back. Tune in. We've got some great content where we talk book recommendations, author interviews, and creative writing tips.
All right. And Brian, why don't you tell the people out there where they can find you at?
I am one of the ever-popular admins on the Sith Library and Archives, a Facebook fan page dedicated to the collection of Sith art and culture across the galaxy. From this galaxy to the next, we're your source for dark side material.
All right. And as for us right here, you can catch us. If you want to contact us, you can email us at warofthestars1@gmail.com. On Instagram, we are at war_of_the_stars1. On X, we are at War of the Stars 1. And on YouTube, we are at WOTS77, or just search War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast. You can also check us out on Spotify, on our main Spotify channel. Just search War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast, wherever you find podcast at. Or you can catch us at also on Feast of Fandoms YouTube channel, where you can look and see our pretty faces if you so desire to see these handsome visages. And yes, or as Garrett says, he has a face for radio.
I do. In fact, I'm going to be covering it up this Halloween with this guy right here.
Oh. Anyway, of course, you can support the show by going to kofi.com/War of the Stars, or you can check out the merch on our merch store at spreadshirt.com/shop/war-of-the-stars. Is there anything else that I'm missing?
No.
No.
We talked about Feast of Fandoms. We talked about what's happening next week.
Happy Halloween!
Yes. With that being said, then remember, this is not just my Star Wars. This is not just your Star Wars. This is our Star Wars. Until next time, may the Force be with you.
This is the way.
The Force will free you.